and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all very well on this very, very windy Saturday. I was going to go out for a run earlier and I'm so glad I didn't because I would have blown over. Once I went out for a run and my glasses blew off. It was so windy, my glasses blew off. Today's video is a wrap-up of the 5 books that I read this week for the book versus film challenge that David and I did. David and I did a challenge this week whereby every weeknight, so Monday to Friday, we would sit down and David would watch the film version of a book that I was reading at the same time, and we sort of had a little challenge with who was going to finish first, and we stopped the film an hour in and had a little chat about what was going on. We vlogged, well, David vlogged the week, and you can go and watch that now. But I just wanted to have a little chat about the books that I read, because I read 5 books this week, so I thought it would be quite fun to wrap them up. And yeah, I mean, that's it, guys. That's what I thought. So Monday was the first day, and I read The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, whilst David watched the film. I finished this first. This was 203 pages long, and I think the film was two and a half hours. I finished this with about 40 minutes to spare. This is one of my childhood favourite books, and if you've been on this channel before, you will know that I've talked about this as sort of, I've got a lot of bookish memories associated with this. It was the first book that I got out from the library, that I reserved from the library, and I remember sort of being excited and waiting for it to come in. We studied it when I was in year 2 at school. How old year 2? 7? I think I was about 7. Studied it, that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but we did like a project on it, and we had like a little afternoon where we had tea and honey on toast and things like that, same as the Lucy's tea with Mr. Tumnus. So there's a lot of sort of nostalgia and like lovely reading memories wrapped up in this book for me, and they still delivered for me in terms of reading this book. I've read it a few times since the first time I read it. I actually had the anthology, an ex-boyfriend, sorry, bought me the anthology for Christmas one year when I was at university, and I remember trying reading the whole Chronicles together, and I never got on with the rest of the books. I've always just sort of stayed true to loving The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but the rest of them. But I gave it 3 stars this time, and that was because there was a few sort of, although the adventure and, like I said, the nostalgia and the joy that I remember from reading it the first time is still there for me, and particularly sort of like food nostalgia. There's a lot in there about food, like the aforementioned tea with Mr. Tumnus and the Turkish delight, and then there's a bit where they have a meal at the Beavers, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver's house, and I love that, and that they're sort of like food memories are really caught up in nostalgia for me. So that was really a bit of fluff. So that was really nice to hear. But there are a few problems with this book that I've discovered now. Number 1 being the sort of age-old, very boring and very overused of this time, that bad people are ugly or deformed, etc, etc, and that was the way it was with sort of the White Queen, the White Witches tribe and things like that, and there's a bit of fat shaming and stuff like that in there, and also the sort of girls are to know their place within this. It's said a number of times throughout that Susan and Lucy aren't expected to fight. They're given, by Father Christmas, they're given weapons, but they won't have to use them. Don't worry, you won't have to use them. But Peter and Edmund are fully expected to fight. So yeah, there's obviously, like, this is of its time, so there are going to be things appearing in there that were okay at the time and aren't so okay now, but yeah, for me, I gave it 3 stars, and enjoyed the rereading experience of it. Then it was Tuesday, and I read Journey to the Centre of the Earth by Jules Verne, and David watched the 1950 something film of this, which was 2 hours and 12 minutes, I'm told. I didn't finish this before the film was over. David finished this, and actually finished the film before me, and actually it took me 2 days to finish this book in the end, just because although it was 185 pages, there's a lot of font, and very small font, that sort of spans the whole page, which I know is a bit of a daft thing to say, but it was quite heavy going. What I will say about this is that I was absolutely astonished at how readable this is, considering it was written in 1884, I think it was written in. I read that this was included as part of the challenge. It's one of my dad's favourite films and books. This is sort of his bread and butter. He likes like adventure stories, and he likes sci-fi and things like that. And this actual book had been on his shelf for ages. And when I texted him to say, have you got any books on your shelves that have been made into movies, he held this one up, and I was like, I've meant to read that for a long time. And David was quite up for watching the film, so we included it. Now, I didn't not enjoy this. I'll be honest, I thought this wasn't going to be for me at all, but actually I quite liked it. It was a lot less science fiction than I thought it was going to be, and a lot more science. There's a lot in there about geology, about rocks, about fossils and things like that. And actually, when David was watching the film, he was like on his way down the hole to the centre of the earth within the first sort of 20 minutes. We didn't even get to Iceland until like well over halfway through the book. So they've definitely paced the book up in terms of what they've done for the film. But yeah, I thought it was okay. I gave it 2 stars. I actually thought when I started reading it, I was like, oh, if I don't end up finishing this in time, I'll probably just DNF this. But I'm pleased I read it. I'll be returning this to my dad. And yeah, 2 stars. Then Wednesday was a little short number. It was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So this book actually contains Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, but it was only Alice's Adventures in Wonderland I read. And David watched the more recent film, I think it's like 2000 and something, with it's got Johnny Depp in it and Helena Bonham Carter. The Alice's, I think that's again called Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which isn't actually a sort of direct copy. Oh, excuse me, direct copy of the book like the Disney classic film is. This was her sort of revisiting it when she'd been in there as a little girl. So but things sort of seem to happen in the same order all the time. David's watching the films, I've been sort of like reading them and looking up, and the things were happening in the same order. So she was eating the eat me and drinking the drink me at the same time that was happening. She was with the caterpillar at the same time I was reading that. The croquet was happening at the same time. But this was very short. It's only 110 pages, and a lot of those were illustrations. Like some pages even just like whole illustrations. I mean, I don't know why I mean, look at that one. That's almost a whole illustration. And I just found it okay. It's just a bit mad. There's like loads and loads of stuff going on. Almost so like I couldn't even really, I finished reading like one mad passage about something that was going on, and then the next mad thing would happen straight away. And there's no sort of rest periods in this book. Now, it's a children's book, and I know that there's not many rest periods in children's books, but yeah, it really felt to me that we were just moving from like one bonkers escapade to the next bonkers escapade. And I gave it 2 stars, and I finished this first. So at this point on Wednesday, I finished 2 first, and David's finished 1. On Thursday, was Agatha Christie, and then there were none. Now, I've read this before. This is the first Agatha Christie that I read last year, and absolutely loved it. And I will still say to this day, this is the best Agatha Christie I've read. I've read a few more of hers now. I've read Murder on the Orient Express, I've read the Christmas one, and I've read another one recently, Body in the Library. But actually saying that, I've listened to all of those on audiobook, and this is the only one that I've read, and now I've read it twice, and I love this. I think it's so good, it's so clever. Even the second time round reading it, I knew what was going to happen. I knew who did it, and I still wasn't able to pick out any clues that led you to believe that the person who was doing the murders had done them. Now, David watched the 1945 version of this film. This was 210 pages long, and that was an hour and 34 minutes or something like that. He finished first, and then I finished this on Friday, so it still only took me 2 days to read. But I love this. I think it's really good. I think one of the reasons I like this so much is there's so much sort of tension built. And so many, like, and there was a set amount of characters. In other Agatha Christie books, what I found is that there's sort of like one middle person, be it Poirot or be it Marple, who is interviewing other people, or sort of like the epicenter of the case. And they seem to ask and I found this in a few books, not just in like one other book that I've read. They seem to ask the suspects the same old boring questions, and it's all very monotonous and da-da-da-da-da. There's no investigator in the middle of this. There's just 10 people who are on an island, gradually each getting picked off one by one until there were none. And yeah, really thought it was brilliantly executed, and they sort of die in really inventive ways, which is a really grim thing to say, but yeah, I thought it was really great. And David loved the film, like really loved the film, and we're actually going to watch the BBC adaptation of this at some point as well, so would definitely recommend. If you haven't read any Agatha Christie, I've read a few of hers now, and none have even nearly touched this. I love it. I've given it 4 stars. Really like it. Again, of its time, there's some anti-Semitism and things in there that sort of like that, but yeah, I think it's a really greatly constructed book, and so sort of clever with like the little hints and clues, and brilliant. So yeah, 4 stars. And then Friday, the last book was Matilda by Roald Dahl. This was 232 pages and the film was just over an hour and a half, and David finished that first. So in the end, David prevailed because he finished 3 films first before I was able to finish the book. I've made that sound much more complicated than it is. But again, this was a book that I loved when I was a child as well. I remember sort of having feelings of feeling like Matilda because I could read before I went to school, and reading was like the thing that I loved to do above all else. I remember sort of kids playing in my street and me just sitting in my garden reading. And like when I was going on holiday, I'd be so excited about going on holiday because I could get 20 books out from the library and just take them all away. So I remember feeling like Matilda, not in terms of like me having a head teacher like Miss Trunchbull, but this was great. Again, really fun, and Roald Dahl just writes children's books like no other, I think, really well, and they've sort of stood up to the test of time. Even the film, I was sort of saying, we were watching, David was watching the film as I was reading it, and like half an hour in we stopped and I was like, I know kids that would watch that now and be so excited by it and find it so funny. I just feel like his storytelling really stands up, and yeah, the little tricks and things like that. And what I think now that I've read a lot of Roald Dahl, you see a lot of each of his stories appearing in other ones. So I could see like elements of George's Marvellous Medicine in here as well. But yeah, really enjoyed it. So yeah, gave that 5 stars. So those were the 5 books that I read during the book versus film challenge. Well done me for finishing 5 books in a week. Look at that, that's good going, isn't it? Let me know if you've got any of what are your favourite book to film adaptations. Dave and I are hoping to maybe do this again. We're definitely going to do it at Christmas with a Christmas Carol. We're going to do it as part of Vlogmas with a Christmas Carol. Imagine thinking about Vlogmas in May. But yeah, if there's other books that you think are manageable, that you could almost read in you could read in one sitting whilst the film is on, then do let me know down below. Let me know what your favourite adaptations are, and I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Go!